Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I played you some of the clips from the John Deaton interview with Link to this weekend, but I don't think this part was captured, or part of this part was not captured. I wanted to make sure we drive it home, because I want to make sure everybody realizes that this ODL thing, at some point, you're going to see the first company or institution step forward and be activated, and when that happens, it's game on. It's game on for XRP. It's game on for Ripple private equity. It's game on for all of it. And this, for me, is the confirmation. It's happening. It's just a matter of who steps forward first and when.
The day after the judge ruled, somebody had tweeted on Twitter, according to summary judgment, our ODL, which is on-demand liquidity, which used to be called XRP, are ODL-related sales now considered securities? David Schwartz from Ripple answered this, and here's what David said, and I want to share it with everyone that's here on this call, because I speak with members every day, and I like to share this, and then I'd like to have your response to how you feel about this, John. So David's response was, and I quote, "We're still figuring this out. We don't currently have ODL-related sales with a U.S. nexus, and not being able to do so is not really a huge deal. We can still do ODL in the U.S. so long as XRP is never sourced from Ripple." And before I ask you to respond, I just want to emphasize that the original a use case for XRP and a payment stream of using RippleNet was called XRapid, which is now ODL, but it was originally designed where the user would buy and sell their XRP through exchanges and not source it from Ripple at all. What are your feelings? Do you think that financial institutions in the US can use XRP currently, and do you think anybody will do it until the case is completed?
Well, I think they're right. Listen, when the first decision came out, I did a live stream, and it was just with a couple hours after the decision. And I said, the only thing that I saw was, the judge grouped ODL into institutional sales. And, technically they're not investing because they're using it as a bridge currency and all those things, and they don't own it outright. They're not relying on the Ripple of efforts because it's seconds later, they don't have it, blah, blah, blah. And so,
Really? I didn't mean to do that. Hold on one second.
Sell their XRP.
It was just with a couple hours after the decision. And I said, the only thing that I saw was, the judge grouped ODL into institutional sales. And, technically they're not investing because they're using it as a bridge currency and all those things, and they don't own it outright. They're not relying on the Ripple of efforts because it's seconds later, they don't have it, blah, blah, blah. And so, no one can ever say a decision is going to be perfect. And so, but I agree with David Schwartz, and that's why I don't think Ripple's that concerned, because as long as Bank of America isn't purchasing it directly from Ripple, they can use it. They can certainly purchase it off Coinbase or Uphold or somewhere like that, and use it how they see fit that way, and then resell it. And so,
all right, there you have it. I hear that to mean that ODL can be used in the United States. You might have to do it a different kind of way, but it can be used. Now, against that backdrop, this clip from Mr. Huber was going around this morning, and I was like, now think about this. Ripple's had to spend over $200 million, go through almost 3 years of an SEC lawsuit, and this guy who created a token foundry and says that Bill Hinman told us that these will not be securities. I'll be able to issue securities through my token foundry. as long as I do it a certain way, and I'll be able to issue them at will, okay? And he said they made tens of billions of dollars in another video that I showed a week or two ago. This guy, the SEC hasn't even brought up. They don't even talk to him. They haven't even brought up the idea of going after this guy.
As our industry explodes with innovation, so that's been really exciting. And Token Foundry.
Not a peep from Gary Gensler, not a peep from Hester Pierce, who's supposed to be crypto mom, the good guy.
Launch services where we can either issue an investor token or one of those consumer utility tokens that Bill Hinman of the SEC said wouldn't be deemed securities if you structure the token properly and if you market it properly. So you don't market it in huge quantities to speculators.
Yep. Yeah. So as you say that, I mean, it's funny to hear both the initial part of that story of like, hey, and this was 2.5 years ago that it was like, oh man, let's try to like spin up some stuff here. And like, okay, let's build Fear, let's build MetaMask, and then now you guys have almost 1,000 people working on all these different kind of parallel exciting things, and kind of this, I think it was kind of like a barbell bimodal system where you were saying deep infrastructure and then also kind of these experiments. So let's actually stay on that experimental track for a bit and talk about.
I'm of the opinion that we're at a place in this country where we either have a country where the laws apply to everyone, or we have a country where laws, they pick and choose who the laws apply to. And I don't think we can go forward from here. We got the same we got this problem all the way up to the President of the United States now. I think we got a real problem. These people, you can't have the bad guys picking who they're going to go after and who they're not. Laws are there for a reason, folks. All right. I think Ripple is saying hello to Gary Gensler. They put this in Union Station in Washington, D.C., which is right across the street, my understanding, from the SEC. Progress prevails. Crypto means business. Ripple. So even though I think Gary's scared to go to work, I think he stays in his home. But if he did go to work, I'm assuming he would have to go through Union Station and he would have to look at these every day. In any event, it's funny. eGrag Crypto is getting very bullish. Check this out. XRP, get ready for the Bullish Cross. You don't need to be a TA guru to see that whenever the 21 weekly EMA and 100 weekly EMA create a Bullish Cross, XRP ignites like fire. Digging deeper, this Bullish Cross emerges following a prolonged tussle with the 21 EMA. XRP Army stays steady as you're the coming 1%. I like the sound of that. Then there was this article on him. Expert forecast 28,250% pump to 149. I will take it. I don't know anything about whether he's right or wrong, but I'll take it. Then Santiment put this out. XRP network is starting to see some mild recovery signs, and today's plus 4% rise appears to be support. This is like yesterday, I think. Yeah, I think. Support some of the assets' largest whales. There are 221 addresses holding between 10 million and 1 billion XRP. They now hold a combined 16.13 billion tokens worth $8.71 billion. Pretty cool. Then Linda Jones was responding to this clip. She says, yes, the numbers are that big, $14.5 trillion. The money will flow digitally, and you own a very valuable asset. You are early, not wrong. I agree. Question, if you knew you owned the next Microsoft or Apple stock, would you be in a rush to sell it in the early days? Listen to what this guy says. He's talking about, by the way, two things. Northern Trust, who he's going to talk about in this video, was one of the largest, I don't know if they still are, but they were one of the largest holders in SBI Holdings, which owns 10% of Ripple. And Chris Larson from Ripple, the chairman of Ripple, was on the technology advisory board of HSBC. 2 points of note.
Let me again remind you all and show you physically why they don't want you freaking involved in this digital asset space. Northern Trust working together with HSBC. If you're not too familiar with who Northern Trust is, let me just fill you in. Northern Trust is one of the largest banking institutions in the United States and one of the oldest banks. Okay, let's just take a second and look at what they have to say.
They're not just a bank. Northern Trust is one of the largest custodians in the world.
The rise of a new asset class. DLT and tokenization have the potential to reshape financial markets by creating new asset classes and enabling new business models, both of which will accelerate change. And then if we scroll down here, this is what's really going to blow your freaking mind. Asset servicers know that they are operating in an evolving world. We expect that by 2030, approximately 5 to 10% of all assets will be digital. Considering that global assets are expected to rise to $145.4 trillion by 2025, this is a substantial number, and it will only continue to increase as technological innovation drives change. So let's just do 10% of $145 trillion. Okay, you guys can see that number right here, right? Well, let's just subtract 10% from that. That is $14.5 trillion. You all see now why they don't want you involved? Again, this isn't make-believe from me. I'm not making these numbers up. This is information that's put out by one of the largest financial institutions in the United States. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. There's something brewing behind the scenes that I feel like a lot of us can't even fathom. And this, again, is why they don't want you involved. They know, it literally says right here, they know. Asset servicers know that they are operating in an evolving world. They know that this is coming. Pay attention to detail.
Asset Servicers 4.0. I like it. Now, every once in a while, it's important that I read an entire thread, and this is one of those threads. John Deaton's over the target right here this weekend. I don't know what inspired him to write this, but it'll infuriate you, and to when you're like me and you've been through this whole Ripple lawsuit, when you hear this, it makes you sick to your stomach. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's time to take out the trash. It's time to fix this country. And part of fixing this country is at the SEC. Several XRP holders got irritated at me because I said we must admit Joseph Lubin, who quickly hired Sullivan Cromwell right after Clayton's appointment to represent Consensus, including hiring several Sullivan and Cromwell lawyers as SEC as staff attorneys, including making S&C partner deputy general counsel at Consensus, acted brilliantly. It was brilliant and clever because at a minimum, it guaranteed that Clayton would recuse himself from voting related to an enforcement action against one of his law firm's clients. In answering questions from Elizabeth Warren, Clayton swore he would recuse himself and not vote against an enforcement action involving his firm's clients. Now, read the deposition of Hinman. Hinman reached out to Lubin because Clayton suggested he do so. Clayton was clearly helping his law firm S&C represent Lubin in Consensus. My God, Clayton reached out to Hinman asking him how the meetings with Lubin and Consensus were going. Ask Hinman how many other times Clayton inquired about the hundreds of meetings Hinman was having unrelated to S&C clients. And Clayton inquired more than once about the Consensus meetings. I'm sure Hinman's law firm, Simpson Thacher, of which he was not retired, but was an ongoing profit-sharing partner, being a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, is 100% sheer coincidence. I'm sure the SEC Ethics Office repeatedly directing Hinman to stop violating the criminal financial conflict statute was nothing to be concerned with. For example, Hinman giving a speech that declared Bitcoin and Ethereum non-securities and disobeying the ethics office for the third time based on his emails, and meeting his partner from Simpson Thacher China office, discussing Canaan's IPO, which was a Chinese company, mining company, a company that sold Bitcoin and Ethereum mining equipment, which benefited immensely from his speech, was also purely coincidental. Hinman actually received profits from his law firm after giving that speech. He took in a total of over $10 million in profits from his law firm's success, income unrelated to his retirement benefits. If you include retirement income, Hinman took in $15 million while at the SEC. He claims he knew nothing about his law firm's EEA membership, which, by the way, can be proven 100% false. Of course, Clayton also immediately took a job at One River, which had made a $1 billion bet on Bitcoin and Ethereum in October 2020, 2 months before Clayton voted for an enforcement action against Ripple. I'm sure just another coincidence. So you see, as promised, Clayton didn't end up voting against the enforcement action regarding his law firm's client. Instead, he voted for an enforcement action against his law firm's client's biggest competitor, and then filed it as he walked out the SEC's door. Clayton filed the case against the stern admonition and warning not to do so by Joseph Grunfest and the national security people too, by the way, who had helped the Ether founders himself and thus was completely impartial. Grunfest warned Clayton that innocent holders would lose billions and would be financially destroyed, although no exigency existed in this non-fraud case he filed anyway. Although I may hold other things against Lubin, no one can blame him for being smart and hiring Sullivan and Cromwell. He had Brad Garlinghouse Stewart Alderati hired. Had Brad Garlinghouse Stewart Alderati hired S&C, they would have likely prevented the lawsuit by forcing Clayton to recuse himself. But they didn't, and now we are $200 million later with more to go. If reading this doesn't disgust you, I don't know what to say. You don't have to believe anyone did anything wrong to admit that we can't continue to exist in a system where choosing a law firm makes the difference between the legal hell versus regulatory advantage. Now, I retweeted this and I said, John, you ought to go on with Charles Gasparino and Liz Clayman and go through all of this. And see, you've seen a lot of Charles Gasparino, talking about the lawsuit and all that. But this is one thing you won't see. They will not have John Deaton come on these programs to go through this. Because, see, these people, I've seen enough at this point. It's pretty simple. They believe, the people up in New York, they believe that this is just the way it works. The guys behind the scenes, they make moves, and this is just the way it works. Doesn't matter if you and I get screwed in the process. The things Jay Clayton and Bill Hinman were doing, these backroom deals and all this stuff, that's just the way it works. That's the way the media up in New York thinks about all this. That's the reason you're seeing all of this. But they will not have John Deaton on to go through all of these facts because that's just the way it's done. What are you making a big deal out of? And that's the sick world we live in now. I'm the digital asset, and that's not the world I want my children to be in. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that our country is at a crossroads. It really is. It's time to take the trash out. Thanks for listening.